let's talk about the Washington Wizards. Yes, we have to. We're going to talk about them, break them down, fantasy value all across this team. And Michael Bolton, he is absolutely pumped.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and in this confusing day and age, in this confusing era, I still don't know whether I need to take my laptop out of my bag when I'm checking in at the airport. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at LockedOnFantasyBasketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? Game Time. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We're free. We're available on all platforms, so platform it. Thumb it, bang it, comment, all that stuff. Yesterday, auction mock draft. Hope you enjoyed it. 2.5 hours worth of stuff. Whether it was good or not, I don't know, but it was there. We will do more. Don't worry, we will do more auction mock drafts. I'm not sure how many, but we will do more of them. So, a quick update to answer some questions, I guess, on the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl. The entry form is linked below. YouTube description, audio show notes. You only have to enter once. There's only one form for all these shows. Fill out what preference, what leagues you want to go in, first preference, second preference. You can go in all 3 different leagues if you want to. The next question is, when will the invites go out? It won't be until probably the end of this week. Still waiting on some people to accept some earlier invites, and then if they don't accept them, then they go out of there and we put guys in. The second question is my draft order set? No, it's not. Once I get the entirety of each little pod of 120 teams confirmed, then we will randomize draft orders, and then that order will be confirmed. You will get an email when the draft order is set. The drafts will still happen around October. They'll start about October the 2nd. That is when everything is planned to go. We're all doing it around that time still. So that is what's happening. The divisions you're in are set. The league that you're in is set. The draft order is not set. And the invites will start to go out at the end of this week. And it is a long process because I've got to make sure I'm double checking and everyone's in the right spot. So I've got your details if you've applied. Now, we have like thousands of people watching these shows and listening to these shows, which is great. I want to get thousands of people applying for this. I want to actually extend it out bigger than what we've got it. But we'll see how we go. We'll see how far we get with this. So if you do want to get in, Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl, rules are linked. Entry form is linked down below. We are talking Washington Wizards. We're looking at these guys from a fantasy point of view. For the upcoming season, we might as well just get straight into talking about this team. Now, the first 2 teams we've done in this fantasy preview series have been the Nuggets and the Philadelphia 76ers, and I think their starting fives have been pretty easy to project. I'm not so sure about this one. So here's what I'm looking at the moment for the Wizards. I've got Jordan Poole at point guard. I don't know whether that's true or not. Bilal Coulibaly at shooting guard. Kyle Kuzma at small forward. Alex Sarr at power forward, and the big fella Jonas Valanciunas at center. I feel very good that Kuzma is going to start and that Valanciunas is going to start. I feel very confident in those. Put them at 100%. The others, absolutely no idea. They could very easily start Brogdon and Poole. They could go out of left field and start Carrington and Brogdon. They could start Poole and Carrington. They could start Poole and Brogdon. They could start Carrington and Bilal. They could throw Poole and Kispert in there. They could throw Brogdon and Kispert in there. They could put Kuzma at the 4, and then they could go Bilal, Brogdon, Poole, or Carrington, or Kispert. I think that's probably the mix there. We've got these 5 names, Poole, Bilal, Kuzma, Sarr, and Valanciunas. We've got those 5 names. Throw Brogdon in there, throw Kispert in there, and outside chance throw Bub Carrington in there. I don't think Bub is going to start. But I think those other 7 names are all in that mix to start for this Wizards team. And with the way that we are, or where we are at the moment, I just don't know. I would say I'm at 90% confidence of Jordan Poole starting, but when Brian Keefe took over last season, Poole came off the bench to begin with. And then, yes, he did go back into the starting lineup and played much better in that second half of the season. And I do believe they view him as a point guard. Brogdon can play off ball. And I think they would love Carrington and Poole to work it to be their backcourt of the future, and Bilal maybe play up at the 3. But yeah, like that. I just don't know what they're going to do, and that introduces a level of uncertainty. Let's talk undervalued players, because we don't want to label them as sleepers. We don't want to label them as busts. We want to talk about undervalued players. And there are 3 guys who do stand out to me on this team at the moment. And we'll start with the big fella, Jordan Poole. Obviously, he was very, very disappointing last season. Minutes somehow lower than in Golden State. Usage somehow lower than in Golden State. His assists didn't jump. Like, everything was bad. We knew that he'd be bad at shooting, but he was worse. And then everything else that I thought would come to offset that didn't happen. And I think now we're at a situation, you can see all those numbers up on your screen now. I think he's just being underrated in a lot of different spots. His ADP on Yahoo is 93, and I think he should be better than that for both categories and points. He's ranked at 98 on Yahoo, and for categories and points, I think he's better than that. On ESPN, his ADP sits at 99, and I think for categories and points, he's better than that. His rank for categories on ESPN is 91, and I think for categories, he is better than that. Now, his points rankings currently is higher than that on ESPN, but of course, they haven't updated anything since April, so we don't know. And even his Fantrax ADP at 82, I think is too low. I think that Jordan Poole has a very, very big shot at being a top 50 player. Don't know that he'll do it. And I wouldn't never going to take him there. Never going to take him there. But he's got a shot at doing that. So all of these where that is absolutely free real estate if you're taking Poole in the 90s, I think. Because if he's worse than last season, because I think he finished 40th post All-Star break and like 100th for the season, I'm going to say. So he's going to be worse than last season to make this not pay off. To me, it is pretty straightforward that is just a very, very easy pick. Because we can all laugh at Jordan Poole and his pursuit of big asses. That's cool. We all have our particular vices. We all have our sexual proclivities. Whatever. Poole averaged 17.5. We all think it was a disaster. 17.5 with 4.5 assists, 2.5 threes, and shot 88 from the line with over a steal. All you need there is 20 points, 5.5 assists, 41 becomes 43 from the field, and bang, you are top 60. It's not hard. And he's a clown. He did... I think that there was just a lot of weird mental stuff with him. For as much as he is a clown, he just looked sad nearly all season until the end of the year where things started to light up. He just didn't look... He was disconnected with the coaching. He was outside the huddle. It was all petulant bullshit, obviously. But he just looked off. So yeah, I'm in. I am in on drafting Jordan Poole. What about the future MVP, Kyle Kuzma? In the auction mock draft yesterday, I was able to sneak Kuzma through for $5, which honestly is an insane steal. Insane to me. Now, the problem there with him is we know what Kyle Kuzma is. Well, I'd hope by now we know what Kyle Kuzma is. He's a player that's going to score. He rebounds not bad. He's not great. He's okay. Those rebounds possibly go down if he plays at the 3. His assists jumped up last season, but he's going to have bad field goals, bad free throws, bad steals, bad blocks. Shout out to Julius Randle, who's actually way better than Kyle Kuzma, obviously. But Yahoo, with their mixed messaging, mixed rankings, has his ADP at 83 and he's ranking at 83 for Kuz. And in a points league, that's crazy. He's way better than that. Now, when I put up guys as being undervalued, I actually think Kuzma in a head-to-head category league with an ADP of 83 is not bad. But I like to look at guys who, I project are going to exceed this by 20 spots. And I don't think in a category league that Kuzma exceeds ADP 83 by 20 spots necessarily. He could, but I don't think he does. So that's why I don't put him there as a category undervalued guy. Because it's very easy to say, well, I think he's 80th and his ADP is 83, therefore technically it's undervalued. Who cares? It doesn't matter. But when you're talking big discrepancies, that's where I'm going to be more interested. Kuzma, he is 29. He probably has to play more at the 3 this year. But he averaged 22, 6.5, and over 4 assists. Yeah, the 0.5 steals is disgusting. 46 from the field is not great, but it is on big volume, and 78 from the lines. It's okay. It's not terrible, though. And I think a lot of people think Kyle Kuzma and go, well, he's shooting 44 from the field and he's shooting 71 from the line, which he could, but he didn't. So I think there's maybe a level of misconception about some of his numbers. He's interesting. There is the worry, of course, of something happening mid-season in a trade. That is a possibility. The last guy that I think is a little bit undervalued is the rookie Alex Sarr. I would say out of every rookie, it's him and Zach Edey who have the best chance of starting opening night. And it is Alex Sarr who realistically, that's not true, and Ricochet to start. And I'd say Sarr and Ricochet, picks 1 and 2, are the only guys I can see getting 30 minutes out straight out of the gate. Sarr is ranked at 197 on Yahoo. He's not even ranked on ESPN because, of course, they did it in April. His points, I just think Alex Sarr, not in the top 100. We are not taking him in the top 100. Absolutely not. But when we're talking about a little bit of value, late rounds, even though he sucked in Summer League, he defended very well. These are his numbers from Perth up on the screen there. In 18 minutes a night, he blocked only 0.4 shots, but he blocked 2.5 in Summer League. His assists were better than I thought. The shooting was obviously horrendous, and there are going to be real concerns with that. But it's not going to be as bad as it was at Summer League. I can 100% assure you of that. So he's a guy that, again, I think 197 is a pretty low number. It's a very low number in terms of where he's ranked on Yahoo and, of course, ESPN, unranked entirely. Late round guy, I am in on that. I'm in on him as a late round player. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. We have talked a lot about FanDuel in the past. Of course, they're not America's number one sportsbooks. That's why we've talked about them. But now, as the days get narrower, we're almost there. This deal they've got, it's something new, and it's about to go away. Because until September the 22nd, all FanDuel customers, when you bet $5, you get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket thanks to YouTube and YouTube TV. With your YouTube TV base plan, you get to watch every single regular season out-of-market Sunday afternoon NFL game. You just need that YouTube TV base plan. You need a Google account, a valid form of payment, and of course you can go in and cancel that at any point. But you get to watch all of these out-of-market games. Now, I don't think you probably want to watch the Dolphins at this point, given where things are headed with the injuries, but maybe you're looking at the resurgence of the running game in LA with the Chargers. Maybe you're looking at CJ Stroud and the Texans, and you don't live in those markets, but now you can. You can see all of this stuff. So go to FanDuel.com right now and download America's number one sportsbook, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, so spoken about the undervalued players. Is there anyone that sits as an overvalued player? I'm glad you asked that question, because even if you didn't ask that question, that is what I was going to cover regardless, or as some may incorrectly say, irregardless. We're talking the man that we just spoke about, the future MVP Kyle Kuzma, because it is easily possible to be both undervalued, sleeper, and overvalued, bust. And Kuzma is. Because currently on ESPN, his rank is 57 for category leagues. And there is just absolutely no way that I'm interested in that. His ADP is 77, Kuzma, so that sits about right for both formats. Well, actually, that's not true. That makes him a decent value play in a points league, but ESPN points league is not as good as the Yahoo points league for Kuzma's value. But his category rank is 57. What? No. We don't do that. We don't take him there. If you want to take him at 70, go for it. Totally would be fine with that. 57 is just too high. I know he's the future MVP, but that is just too high of a number to consider Kuz at that position. So, what are the... Oh, that's the wrong button, Josh. You didn't need to hit that one. Actually, that was the right button. We are looking at breakout candidates on this team, and breakout's a very loose term. Just a guy that who's going to do something better than probably he ever has before, or take a big step forward, or change the way we think about how he plays, or however you want to frame it. Jumps up 50 spots in the rankings from last season, whatever. The guy that I have to look at, I don't think you can class Poole or Kuzma or Valanciunas or anyone like that as a breakout player. The guy that I've got here is Bilal Coulibaly. He was a very high draft pick last season. He began the season starting. He had struggles, absolutely. He only averaged 8 points with 4 rebounds. We thought he'd be a really good source of defensive stats. And you look at that and go, well, yeah, 0.9 steals and 0.8 blocks is pretty good. Rookie didn't play that much. He actually averaged 27 minutes a night last season. I know that I didn't actually realize that he played 27 minutes a night last season. I don't think many people would realize that. He only had 14 usage, and that's part of the problem with trying to get too excited about Bilal. Like 8 points and 1-3. He's got some passing ability, but it's probably not going to shine with Brogdon, Poole, Kuzma getting the ball, Carrington getting it too. He's never going to get those opportunities. So it's really going to come down to steals and blocks, which we know are volatile, they're variable. It's not a bad start, 0.9 steals and 0.8 blocks, but honestly, 0.9 steals in 27 minutes, actually kind of bad, especially if you were working as a defensive specialist. The blocks is impressive. The shooting is bad. But this is an extraordinarily young player who was making the transition from early season playing second division French basketball to playing in the NBA a year later. I think that if we talk about who do they bank on as their future, it has to be Bilal, it has to be Sarr, and it's probably Bub. They're the guys they hope, and then they hope to add a Cooper Flag-ish, Bailey, Harper, whatever, in this draft coming up. But that is who they want. So we'll see what Bilal can do year 2, and I think they'll give him every opportunity to play 30 minutes. Maybe we push 17 usage. Maybe the shooting jumps 5 percentage points. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe we get 1.5 steals with a block, 12 points, 4 rebounds, 2.5 assists. There's not many other candidates on this team to be a breakout as such. And yeah, Bilal's got I won't say he's got the profile necessarily, because that profile is not ideal. But the defensive stats are there. The team investment should be there. And I think that's giving us a level of faith, a level of value in being able to bring him and at least take that last round flyer, similar to what we did last year, and then we moved on pretty quickly. Now, let's take a look at where we sit with some risks in the rotation. What could possibly happen here that would be not ideal for us? Well, again, I am investing in Jordan Poole in drafts. I am in on that. Again, it seems crazy to say that, but I do think there is value in that. But what if they don't start Poole? What if he goes back to a sixth man role, plays 28 minutes a night, and then actually I'm not interested in him. Really, I wouldn't probably touch him inside the top 90 because they could start Malcolm Brogdon. Now, Brogdon's another weird player because he came across in the Denny Avdia trade. He put up solid enough numbers last season in only 29 minutes, 16 points, 5.5 assists, bad defensive stats. He used to be an awesome steals guy. That's disappeared. Shot only 44%, hit 2 threes, but he played like 30 games. And I expect that he will not be playing down the stretch for the Wizards, whether he is fake injured or he is playing for a different team. I don't mind him as a late pick in drafts, and then you move on at some point. But they could easily just go to him as the starting point guard there, start him and have Carrington or Kispert and Brogdon with Carrington and Poole off the bench and really mess with that sort of stuff. One of the other risks is the risk of a mid-season trade. Because Kuzma could go. I don't think Poole could go, but Brogdon, Valanciunas, Rashawn Holmes, so many players could move on here. What about Kuzma? Because I posed the question here, can Kyle Kuzma play small forward? And the answer is yes, because he did it for the Lakers, whether you count LeBron as a power forward or small forward, whatever. But he did it at times for the Lakers. But he has been strictly a 4 for Washington over these last couple of years. And he has, for as much crap as I have given him, a lot of it tongue-in-cheek, he's improved his game a lot. Now, I thought he regressed quite a bit last season in terms of, and he sort of skated while Jordan Poole copped all the criticism for terrible shot selection and sort of immature play. That he sort of got away with that, I think, to a degree. But he's been playing the 4. So does he play the 3 to enable Sarr to start? Because Sarr's not going to play center. Almost, he should, but he won't. So can Kuzma move back to playing the 3? That for your defense on the perimeter is horrendous. He sucks defensively. That is really bad. So we'll see whether they can do that or not. And then do they go into having Corey Kispert play? I think Corey Kispert's bad, actually. I think he's a guy that's a shooter who every season, at the end of the season in his career so far, they shut down guys. He plays big minutes. We go, Corey Kispert might be okay. As he has 37 minutes and scores 20 points because everyone else is out. I don't know what he does apart from shoot, and even he doesn't shoot at the absolute elite level. And I just don't think he's very good. So he's one of those guys that, I thought, again, a lot of this comes back to when you talk where you had someone as a draft prospect, and I had him very low. I thought it was an insane pick to pick him where they picked him. I would say that his production has shown that. He had 13 points in 26 minutes last season. For a bad team, he played 26 minutes. He gets no steals, no blocks, no assists, no rebounds. He doesn't shoot free throws well. He's like Joe Harris, but way worse. So but maybe he does. Maybe the idea of him shooting starts over Bilal. Again, that would be a crazy decision for a rebuilding team. Because this man is already 26. He's still on his rookie contract. He is old. And he has not shown to me to be good in any area. It's not true. His shooting is fine. And when million guys go out, he can ramp up what he does. But that also just has very little appeal to me as a player. Today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Game Time is always chucking new features out there. They're innovating. They're doing new things because they know that what you want to do is go to events. You want to buy tickets to go see your favorite local sports team. You want to go to the local theater. You want to watch comedy troupes. That's a thing, isn't it? Whatever. Musicals. They know that you want to cut the fluff. You want to save time. You want to take the guesswork out of buying those tickets. That's where Game Time Picks comes in. They sift through all those ticket options for the event you're looking at, and they go, don't worry about these other ones. We're going to throw the best ones up the top. We're going to highlight them for you. And you go, well, this is where the value is, surely, because Game Time's Picks is telling me these are the tickets I need to look at. And that's how you get your value. You save your time, and you just figure out the easy part is getting to the game. The hard part gets covered for you by Game Time. They've also got zone deals, of course, flash deals, where tickets start to go down the closer it gets to game time. All in pricing, which you switch on in the app and shows you just the full price instead of worrying about processing fees and transaction fees or whatever fee it is coming on at the end and changing your idea of where the ticket sits. So you can take that guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Okay, so gone through and talked undervalued and overvalued and breakouts and rotation risks. That must mean it's time to go under the lens. And I wasn't sure exactly who I was going to do under the lens here for the Washington Wizards, but I am going to go with the big fella in the middle, Jonas Valanciunas. He comes across, and I think there's a few things to just get out of the way with Valanciunas because, yeah, look, he struggled last season. He struggled the last 2 seasons, and it was, I thought, very obvious that that was going to happen and why it happened. It's because the fit with him and Zion Williamson was horrendous. But Zion Williamson doesn't play for the Wizards, in case you weren't aware. So we don't have to worry about that fit. Now, I'm not saying that JV is awesome, because he's not. He's serviceable to good. He's a very different center to what they ran out there last season with Daniel Gafford. But he's a serviceably good center. He's more offensively inclined than defensively, and you can have a look at those absolutely horrendous numbers there from Crafted NBA on his deflections and adjusted defensive turnover creation. They're just horrible. His rim defense is bad, but his contest rate is solid. But offensively, he's just a really, really good rebounder. The idea of him as a stretch guy is there, but he doesn't take many of them. He's not a big load player, giggity. He's not a huge creation guy. You can see, though, that interestingly, those comparisons to where he was last season, offense, the most comparative player to him was Anthony Davis, which is really intriguing. All right, this is all done per minute stuff. Defense, it's Mo Bamba, which is actually a terrible thing because Bamba is a bad defender despite him blocking shots. And his overall comparison there is Jalen Smith and Thomas Bryant. Not great comparisons. But JV, I think, is a little better than his time in New Orleans would suggest. A couple of little graphs here. You can see his Darko career progression. He's very clearly on the downside of his career. He did start to not necessarily restore what he was doing last season, but back to improve some of his numbers. But still, we are very clearly on the way down, and he's probably moving into negative player territory. What this headshot here is trying to show is there are 2 things I thought were important because Valanciunas has this idea as being a spacer, creating that opportunity for guys like Kuzma, for guys like Saar, for guys like Poole and all those guys. So like I've got gravity on the y-axis, and then I've got that idea of a rim protector. And the one on the x-axis is the percentage of rim shots contested. And I've got the 3 Wizards centers here, Bagley, Valanciunas, and Holmes. Now, There are some who will think that Marvin Bagley is a better player than Jonas Valanciunas. Those people are wrong. There are some who might think Holmes is. Again, they are even more wrong. What I found interesting about this is that out of those guys, the spacing gravity, Valanciunas is, despite being a low-volume three-point guy, provides way more value than what Bagley does or Holmes does as a spacer. That's not super surprising. But again, when you compare him to these other two guys, his ability to do that, as well as contest shots at the rim, he's way better than Bagley and Holmes. So when we talk about the security of what Valanciunas brings in terms of being in this role as their starting center, I don't think there's any argument that you could make for Bagley or for Holmes to play. Now, the guy that I would make the argument for is now on a 2A, and that's Tristan Vukcevic, which they're not going to play him in that role. But I think that Valanciunas is an interesting player, that some of his numbers are depressed because of lower minutes in New Orleans, and I think that goes up this season. I've got the radar graph there of the similarity between him and other players, and the guys that do show the similar shape to him. Not a surprise. It's Ivica Zubac, it's Nikola Vucevic, it's Jarrett Allen and Jalen Duren. Rebounders, Zubac, Allen, Duren, Vuce, all big rebounders. No three-point shooting from any of those guys. Vuce will occasionally attempt some, but he's bad at it. And also, all those players, yes, even Jarrett Allen, were not very high block players. Now, Allen and Zubac are better defensive presences and contesting guys, but their block numbers were very low. Whereas Duren and Vuce are invisible at that end. And that's the sort of shape of a player of Jonas Valanciunas. And as always on these radar graphs, the thick line is the player we're comparing, and that's Valanciunas, and the other colors you can see. They're all got that same shape, and a lot of them are better. Some of them are worse as overall players and overall options. But he's a guy that at the moment, Jonas is going later in drafts than I think you'd probably think. Where's he currently sit at the moment? Like, his ESPN ADP is 101. His Yahoo's down to 86 actually, which is probably about right, to be honest. Actually, I thought he was going to be a little bit different there on Yahoo. So look, I think that's probably about the right spot in that 90 zone. But if he does start to get more minutes, then look, he played 23 last season, but if he plays 28 on the Wizards, he beats that number. Like, even in those 23 minutes last season, he was only 21 usage, and he might get more than that in Washington. 0.8 blocks, 56 and 79 are great percentages, 12 and 9 there. Like, I'm not saying he's a 30-minute player, but there's a possibility. He could be a 30-minute player, I guess. I wouldn't sit there and 100% rule that out. I think there's a possibility of it. A small possibility, but a possibility nonetheless. Let's talk injuries and where we're at with injury concerns on this team. A few of them. Now, one of them is the aforementioned Marvin Bagley, who had a chance last season, and he did improve his game last season, but I don't think there's really any debate about that for a guy that rightfully has been criticized by some, I'm not sure who, criticized his game and the way he plays. He improved, but he had a significant back injury towards the end of last season that saw him in and out of the lineup. He never really got a chance to establish himself. If we see Bagley start, I actually think in points leagues we would grab him, and we would consider it in category leagues. He averaged 12 and 6 in just 21 minutes. He had 0.7 blocks and shot 59 and 76. They're pretty good percentages. Now, he's never going to get a single assist ever, or steal, or hit threes. But they were improvement numbers for sure. So we just watch that, and I think he will lock in as the backup center. Brogdon, the injuries are just everything. He's had a history of lower body, groin, hamstring injuries. He's got a history of fake injuries, playing for the Blazers last season as well. He had the elbow issue in Boston, which nixed the trade to the Clippers, which then enabled them to end up getting Kristaps Porzingis in that Grizzlies-Wizards deal. So we know that he is going to miss time through either a real injury or a fake injury. We know that's going to happen for Brogdon. Bilal ended last season with a wrist problem. He should be totally okay to go. And the last one there is someone who is on this team, another player that I think is just very much not good, and that is Saddiq Bey. And I thought, again, thank you, Saddiq, for proving me correct that you were bad last season, because you were bad. He averaged 14 points. He hit under 2 threes, 6 rebounds, never steals, never blocks, never assists, shot badly. He's the guy. He is the 3-and-D player who doesn't hit threes very well or at volume and doesn't defend well at all. He's just bad. Now, he tore his ACL in March last season, the depressed penis. Maybe he returns in March or February, or maybe they just say sit out the whole year. Regardless, we are not drafting Saddiq Bey anyway. We're not touching him. He's bad, and he's injured, and he might not play at all. And you don't care if he comes back because he is, you can say that with me if you like, he is bad. He is not a good player, and he is injured. That is not the combination that I would want. Let's take a look at the Washington Wizards and their schedule for this upcoming season. Now, they have 51 quality games, which is pretty good. It's sort of middle of the pack, but it's in the upper end of the middle area. It's pretty good. Don't know why they've got so many, but they do. They've got 15 back-to-backs, which is high. 16 is the max. They're at 15. They've got the lowest amount of maximum game weeks, though. So only 12 of their weeks during the 25 weeks, whatever it is for the season, that they play the most games out of anybody. That's a low number, clearly. What they do have in the fantasy playoffs, depending on when your fantasy playoffs are, is a 5-game week. If you use my recommended schedule and finish on March the 23rd, they go 3, 5, and 3. If you push that back and go March 30th, they go 5, 3, and 4. And that 5 games is interesting because outside of Brogdon, not sure that any of these other guys would be rested as a routine thing. Now, if you get injured, of course, that's different, and fake injuries could pop up at any point for this team that is 100% tanking. But the 5 games is interesting. If you use Yahoo's default, they go 3, 4, 4. Solid enough. Pretty good. And ESPN's default gives them a 3, 4, 4, 4, which is the final 4 weeks of the season, 2-game weeks in the playoffs, because again, ESPN does not understand fantasy basketball. They do not make any adjustments to what they do for fantasy basketball, and they continue to roll out a terrible product. And Yahoo, you're not far behind, to be honest. But yeah, ESPN, you're still defaulting to the final week of the season, which you wouldn't do it in football, would you? You wouldn't put week 18 as the final week, I am certain. Maybe you would. Maybe someone who plays on ESPN can tell me that is actually what they do, and then I will say, yep, tracks, but ridiculous nonetheless. Let's look at the young guys, the under 23s, and where they sort of sit for dynasty purposes. We've covered a few of these guys already. Bilal Coulibaly, my Bazemore metric over on Basketball Monster, which you tweak depending on sort of where you're sitting. Rebuilding, contending. This is all like relatively new stuff that I'm putting out there, and we're still testing it. We got relatively good feedback on it, and we're still working through kinks on it and how it's going to process and show up and that sort of stuff. But people seem to have some success with it. Bilal comes out as top 100 in a full sort of rebuild setting. Alex Sarr, top 50 dynasty prospect. I still believe that, even though he shot terribly in Summer League. I don't really care that much. I've got Bub Carrington as a top 75 dynasty guy. And Bub is, a guy that I had. And part of the reason that Bub would come out looking top 75, because it's not that his college numbers were awesome. I'm going to put those up on the screen for you guys now to have a look where his college numbers were playing at Pittsburgh. He's a 6'4" point guard. He had, I think, he was the youngest player ever to have a triple-double in college, I believe, but he averaged just 14 points in 33 minutes, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, but like bad defensive numbers, 0.6 steals, 0.2 blocks. Shot 41 and 79 with 2 threes. I think he's going to be able to turn into a really sort of strong, best case scenario for him, 19, 7 and 7 player with 1 steal on 45 and 80. That's my best case for him, hitting 2.5 threes. The pull-up jumper for him is solid. I think his three-point shooting is going to be good. His command of the ball is good. His pace is good. I think that I had him as like a top 6 player in this draft class. So him going at 14 drops some of the dynasty value down a bit, because the way I weigh that into these formulas is how do I view the player, but also how is he viewed around the league? Because draft capital plays a part. If you are picked at 5, you get more chances, more opportunities than if you're picked at 12. It's just how it works. Even if I think the guy's the 5th best player and he goes at 12, that doesn't really matter. It matters that I like his skill, but if the other teams let him fall that far, then the opportunities become lower. But anyway, I've got Bub sitting as a top 75 player. If you are occasionally looking for Bub in a draft, his name is Carlton, so you might be listed under Carlton Carrington. Their other first-round pick is Keyshawn George, who I've got top 225. I don't love his game. He's sort of a tall shooter, not much to love there. But I do really like Tristan Vukcevic, who was a second-round pick the year before, came across on a multi-year deal with some non-guarantees. Thought he played pretty well in the time that he was over last season. Only 15 minutes a night, but 23 usage, 9 and 4, 0.7 blocks, 43 and 77, hit a 3 a game, 22 years of age, 6'11". Double that. Like that's 15 minutes, double that. 17 and 7, 3 assists, 1.4 blocks, 2 threes, Top 60 guy. Is he good enough, though, to be a player that plays 30 minutes at any point in the next 3 years? I don't know, because they have signed him now to a two-way contract, which is baffling to me. I am hopeful that they just get rid of Bagley or Holmes and they convert Vukcevic back onto a full-time contract and they give him the backup center job and they see how he and Sarr can work together. Because honestly, at the moment, that is the future. Part of the reason Valanciunas is brought in, I think, is to provide size, strength, to protect Sarr from some of this stuff. And this isn't Vooch, this is Vukc. He can't really call him Vooch, can he? Too much confusion. Vukcevic is not quite that guy that Valanciunas is. He could develop into it. I think he's got the frame to really bulk up and be strong. But I really do like him, and that's why I've got him as that top 175 guy. And the other player on that list is one of the worst players in the entire NBA. It's John Davis. I'm going to put up Johnny Davis's stats. Remember, this man was the 10th overall pick, and we just had his second season. I've got him ranked as a top 325 guy, which when you say top and 325, it doesn't really sound that good, does it? This was his year 2 numbers, John Davis. He played 12 minutes a night for 3 points. He shot 40%. He shot 58 from the line. He averaged half an assist. Half in 12 minutes. It bumped that to 24. He averages 1.2 assists. 1.4. Does the man do anything well? The answer is no. And they should decline his 4th-year option. And honestly, they should just cut him. He's had some issues with his back. He's had some issues with his shot. But he just sucks at this point, and I don't think it is ever coming back for him. So, apologies to you, Johnson Davis. You are just not going to be a thing that happens. You know that I did a show talking about best case, worst case, upside, downside scenarios. So let's talk about the risk-reward guys on this team. And the name that comes up for me here is Jordan Poole. He did project to have the largest sort of deltas in best case, worst case. He had a 67-spot variance in best case category to worst case. He had a 6.2 fantasy points, best case, worst case. And like I will continue to say this because it is a newish concept that I'm introducing. This does not account for minutes or games played. This is not saying, well, the downside of Jordan Poole is he plays 33 minutes, that's best case, or he plays 25, worst case. Or that he gets injured and plays 50 games or stays healthy and plays 80. This is individual statistical variance on a year-to-year basis of the numbers that he puts up. He is the risk-reward guy. And we've already discussed the risks of the rotation and Bub and Brogdon and Kispert and how Keith could sort of shuffle that stuff around. But Poole is the risk-reward player, I think, that really does stand out on this squad. This team had a lot of younger players, the under-23s. I could have included Patrick Baldwin on there. Went 6 names deep. I didn't want to go to Patrick Baldwin, but he was one of those names. I had a level of hope maybe in him, but it's done. What about all the guys who are over 29? Because 29 is the age where we start to go over the hill. We start to push past that. Now, Kuzma's over that age, just barely. But Valanciunas, Brogdon, Anthony Gill is on this roster. Let's get it on, Gilly. And Rashawn Holmes, who is just way older than you think. Holmes came across in the Daniel Gafford deal. We thought that there'd be an opportunity for him with Marvin Bagley getting hurt, and people maybe think that Holmes is still good, but he's not. He's had a lot of issues go on personal-wise, but he's also now 31. He played 14 minutes a night. He averaged 5 and 4.5 with half a block. He's never been a big blocks guy. And I think this might be just it for Rashawn Holmes. I don't know. Maybe they end up buying him out, waiving him, trading him, and then opening up that roster spot for Vukcevic. But he's on that decline phase list, along with Kuzma, along with Valanciunas. Now, Valanciunas might decline again. We look at the Darko graph. It was already going down to him being a negative player. That might still happen this season, but I think his numbers actually go up because he plays more than 23 minutes a night, and that's, again, important context with all of this stuff. Now, what I should really do, and I haven't, maybe I'll do it for when we start the next batch of shows, is just do a bit of a summary, I guess, on the team and the players and where we're looking at these guys. There's no one on this team that we should consider top 50 guys. No one. I do like the value that Jordan Poole provides. I think Kuzma's got value in certain spots, but I think he's overrated in some spots, but he's like a 60s or a 70s to 80s player. Poole's around a 70s guy as well, who might be way higher. I like Valanciunas in that 80 zone. I like taking Sarr in the later rounds. I like taking Brogdon in the later rounds. I like taking Bilal in the later rounds. I do not like taking Corey Kispert at all. And I don't think that I would take Bub Carrington. Here is why I wouldn't draft Bub Carrington in a 10, 12, or 14 team league. Rookie point guards suck. We know this. They are bad for a long period of time. Now, if you are a very, very good rookie point guard, I will take a flyer on you. If I go, you're going to start, you're going to play 30-ish minutes, I'll take a flyer on you and see what happens. And if you don't get anything cracking for 3 weeks, I'll move on. I'll pick you back up later, which is almost inevitably what happens. But Carrington doesn't have an open pathway to play 30 minutes opening night. He is going to be a rookie point guard who sucks, who turns it over a lot, who has bad percentages, and struggles with usage early on. Eventually, he might be a 31-minute-a-night guy post-All-Star break. But we can't wait that long. So I like Bub. I really like Bub. But he fits the archetype of a guy that you'd struggle to draft anyway, and he doesn't have a starting job at this point. And I don't feel any confidence in that happening. So that would be the other name that I guess some people would consider as a draftable guy, but you shouldn't. Interestingly, Marvin Bagley has an ADP of 144 on Yahoo. I don't really know why that is, but we're not drafting him either. What we are doing, though, is hitting the old thumb, the double bang, and let me know what you thought of this episode. What did you think of the Washington Wizards and the players on this team? And are there any that you're going to look at? Remember the risk associated with this team. Trades and tanking. They will sit guys, although Jordan Poole played out the season. Kuzma didn't. Tyus Jones didn't. Jordan Poole did. And Kuzma's 29 and Poole's like 25. So maybe we get a lot of the Poole, Vukcevic, Sarr, Kispert maybe, Carrington playing down the stretch. Maybe we get that again. But they are a bad team. They could be the worst team in the NBA. They're not because Brooklyn's there, but they could be. And they will be absolutely trying to lose 20 games straight from March onwards. I feel relatively confident in that. I feel confident you're going to enter the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl. We've got 400 of the 1,000 spots filled already. But there's still plenty of spots left. I've got about 350 applications so far. So, get more in. And we can still expand this stuff out. Points leagues, roto leagues, category leagues. We're done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.